The trial is presently underway for a man who gunned down a Georgia dad while he was dropping off his toddler at daycare. It is a very sad story. The accused killer, Hemi Newman, has pleaded guilty by reason of insanity. Now, insanity due to a bipolar state is what he claims, and although you've heard my legal experts a few minutes ago completely squashing that defense, I did want people to understand what this condition is and why, when he made this defense, it sounded like he could be bipolar disorder. So we're going to get into this a little bit. I'm joined by General Hospital star Maurice Benard. Maurice has suffered from bipolar disorder for quite some time, and he actually, in a manic state, tried to kill someone, his wife. And Maurice's wife, Paula Benard, is also on the phone with us. Hi, Paula.
Hi.
Hey there. We'll get with you in just a second. And I've got Melody Moisey. She joins us via Skype. She's a spokesperson for bipolar disorder and sufferers, people who suffer from the disease. And I've also got psychiatrist from Harvard Medical School and author of The Emotional Calendar, Dr. John Sharp. So, Maurice, I'm going to go to you first. You had a manic state. And was this before you were diagnosed? Is this maybe when you stopped your medication?
Oh, yeah. You know, basically with me is every time I stop taking my medication, something happens again. I've been taking it now for 20 years straight.
That's what we call mood stabilizing medication.
Yeah, it's lithium.
Lithium.
Saved my life.
Yeah. And so when you were in the manic state, what did it look like? What did it feel like when you were in it?
Racing thoughts, grandiose.
Spending lots of money?
I spent not buying cars and all that kind of stuff, because at that time I don't think I had the money. But, you know, yeah, you spend, you don't care what kind of money you spend. And my thing is, anger comes with it.
Irritability. Yeah, you become very irritable.
Can get scary.
Did this defense, did you hear the defense? This guy.
I was watching it in the back there.
Do you think that's plausible? Does that sound like bipolar to you?
Somewhat.
It did, right? It does.
Somewhat.
Yeah. And how about this? His capacity to sort of systematically plan it out. It's not like you're detached from reality all the time.
No. You know, I mean, you brought up that I threatened to kill my wife during one manic episode. But for me, even though I'm saying I'm going to do it, I knew that I wouldn't do it. For me, it was all about getting her to believe that I would.
So you think this guy, having done it, is something else?
Well, look, I don't know. I can only speak for myself. I mean, was there drugs involved? I don't know.
Interesting question.
Right?
Paul, yeah, great question. Paul, let me go out to you. What was it like to see him in that condition? It must be very scary for family members.
Yeah, it was horrifying. I mean, it's just one of those. Go ahead.
No, you please go ahead.
It's one of those times where I felt like this is my husband, but this is not my husband.
Right.
And I was able to see a difference.
And you heard this defense of this gentleman who killed this man in Georgia. Did it make sense to you? I mean, when you saw your husband in that agitated state, did you feel that he could do something that just completely off the scale for what he would normally do?
I do, yeah. And then Maurice at that time also had alcohol. I mean, at that time he had drank an excessive amount of alcohol. So I believe absolutely it was possible. He doesn't, but
I don't think
me?
so, because we're going to have an
I
argument.
definitely
Well, let me, Paul, I'm going to side with you. I'm going to side with you. I've seen some really, really wild behavior in people in a manic state that they would never do when they're in their what we call euthymic state, when they're stabilized. And I've seen superhuman things happen. I've seen people dive through plate glass and stuff and squeeze through tiny holes.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the characteristic for people at home, if they have this kind, the characteristic thing that my manics often say is, I figured it out. Yeah. You feel like you understand everything, like you understand the universe.
Yeah.
And so that's where really a manic state gets going.
My husband thought he was psychic. He literally
No, but I was psychic.
He says he is psychic.
No,
So that's back to you fighting again. Hold on. Let me go out to my guest on Skype. It's Melody. Melody, does all this conversation sound familiar to you?
It sounds familiar, but at the same time, I think it's very important. I have bipolar disorder, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But the majority of people with mental illnesses are victims of violent crime, not perpetrators. And it's unfortunate that when events like this happen, suddenly we begin talking about mental illness, but we need to be talking about the majority of people who have mental illness who do not commit crimes. Of course, if you're in a manic state, that's horrible, and you may do a lot of horrible things. but most people are not consistently in a manic state, and there are amazing treatments, as I'm sure you know, Dr. Drew, for bipolar disorder. The problem is the stigma prevents people from taking their medication. So if you don't take
and also people like manics kind of like their manias too, and it's hard to get people to keep taking the medicine. You've tried a couple times. But Melody, you bring up a really important point. Let me just list for you a couple of people that we know and that have discussed publicly their bipolar disorder. And you'll see these are extremely capable, gifted people. Catherine Zeta-Jones, she entered a health treatment facility for bipolar just last year. Demi Lovato went to treatment, was diagnosed with bipolar. Sinead O'Connor told Oprah she was bipolar. Linda Hamilton was diagnosed. Carrie Fisher diagnosed at 28. Patty Duke has talked for years about her bipolar disorder. So these are rich, important people on all of our radars. So it's not that somebody is bad or is, as you say, Melody, going to become a bad person or do bad things because they have mental illness.
You named a lot of women, but it seems like men don't want to talk about it.
Well, let me go out to Dr. Sharp. Dr. Sharp, do me a quick favor. I've got about a minute and a half, and let's differentiate the two types of bipolar. And Maurice brings up an interesting point. Are men diagnosed less frequently or just less likely to talk about it?
Thanks, Dr. Drew. Absolutely so important to try to destigmatize this. And I think Melody makes a good point that we don't want to think that people who have bipolar disorder kill people. I mean, it really is so highly unlikely and rare. But to answer your question, bipolar disorder is a mood disorder, right? So you have normal mood swings up and down. People with bipolar disorder have extensive downs as well as extensive ups. That's the bipolar. So it's like depression plus separate, discrete periods of mania. And if it's through the roof mania, where you're really out of touch with reality testing, where you're crazy manic, that's bipolar 1. And if you don't reach those intense highs, but you still get unnaturally high, elevated, expansive, irritable, grandiose, then that's called bipolar 2. So those are the kinds of bipolar disorder. I don't know whether this man had either one, though.
And Jan, really quickly, I've got 20 seconds. Are men less likely to be diagnosed or just less likely to talk about it?
Less likely to talk about it. And the one big point I want to make is that psychosis is a matter of severity. So you can't be a little bit bipolar and psychotic. So this guy would have had to be really bipolar to be
severely
that crazy.
Bipolar, yeah. Right.
And I don't know whether his behavior is consistent with that.
I agree with you. It's an interesting conversation. Thanks.